Why did the orange fail his driving test?
Why?
He kept peeling out.
That's not allowed?
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast, where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from theredparty.com. This week, we are talking about the psychology of menus.
What?
Yeah, right? And we have a special guest, Allie Craig. Let's talk about it.
Hungry Squared.
Sharon, how's your week been? Have you eaten anything fun this week?
Yeah.
What'd you eat?
I made chilaquiles.
Excuse me?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay. What are they?
It's kind of like a deconstructed enchilada, sort of. So I made it in kind of a casserole form.
Mm-hmm.
I've had individual servings at restaurants before. It's
How
usually,
do you even spell that? Sorry. I need to...
It's CHILAQUILES.
Okay.
So it's usually tomato based, kind of like enchilada sauce tasting.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's corn tortillas somehow incorporated. Either they're fried or served like chips or served inside of it. It's pretty good. I've had a breakfast-based one so it's basically a customizable Mexican casserole of sorts. So,
Ooh.
yeah. So think deconstructed enchilada with some chips, kind of a thing, like messy nachos almost.
Oh.
I've had breakfast-based, so more of an egg-centric.
Oh.
So that's been really good. This one is a vegetarian version that I customized to include meat because of all the meat fans in my house.
Yes. So did you just like make it up, or was there a recipe that you used?
I got it from the eat8020.com website.
Oh.
eat8020.com. That's Lindsay Cordick's site. She is a registered dietitian and she makes a lot of family-friendly, veggie-heavy meals.
Nice.
So for all kinds of diets, and you can personalize them to however your taste buds are, but she's got a lot of great recipes, and she includes all of her nutrition facts with her recipes too.
That is great. You are being so healthy.
I'd like to think so, but it's really tasty actually.
Oh, good.
I put some ground beef and yellow squash, tomatoes, I don't know, onions, garlic. There was a whole bunch of stuff in there. It was good.
Sweet. That sounds delightful.
Goat cheese.
I love goat cheese. Some people don't like goat cheese, but I like it.
I do too.
Yeah.
What'd you eat this week?
We had some friends over this last weekend, and we have been wanting to have them over and make banh mi sandwiches.
Oh, I love those.
So if you don't know what banh mi are, it's BAHNMI. It's a Vietnamese sandwich, usually with very tasty fillings, and it's usually on a baguette, because there was so much French influence, obviously, when it was
colonization.
Yep, exactly. And so it's on these French baguettes. Lee made a delicious garlic steak filling for one of them, and then you can put pickled carrots and daikon radishes.
Yum.
Some cilantro. I know some people don't like cilantro, but it tastes really good, and some jalapenos. That was really good. And then I made one. I'd never made this before, but it was a lemongrass tofu.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I really liked it. It was the kitchen's version of it.
Okay.
And I'll put a link in the show notes, but it was really tasty. I think I would probably maybe put a little bit more garlic, because I like garlic, but it was really super tasty. And then I think I'm going to cut the tofu a little bit thicker the next time, because I like to have.
So it's kind of meaty.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they were the slices because you have to either grill them or you put them under the broiler. And I put them under the broiler, and I probably put them a little bit longer than I should have, so that they kind of shrunk in width.
Did they crisp up?
Yeah. And I kind of
cool.
wanted it to be crispy, but maybe that wasn't for everybody. So next time I'll probably pull some of them out a little sooner and keep some in a little bit longer, because that's the way I like it.
Nice.
Yeah, but it turned out really good. My friend, the vegan,
Uh-huh.
She brought over the carrots and the daikon radishes that had been, she'd pickled them. I was like, man, looks so easy. I should do that. She's like, I'll get you the recipe. I'm like, okay, I will get the recipe, because she really just had jars of it that she's like, oh, I just made some a couple weeks ago. I'm like,
that's so cool.
You did? Sheesh. Some people are so ambitious.
Yeah, they are.
It's impressive.
It's nice when you get to reap those rewards.
Yeah, I know. I was like, thanks for that extra jar.
And now for the main course.
Okay, let's get down to our first topic at hand. We have an interview with Allie Craig today.
Yes, Allie Craig from the alliecraig.co. She is awesome. You guys, I had the privilege, and we'll talk about it, how we met each other, but it was kind of fun to actually talk to her about the psychology of menu design, and how they get you to buy more food at restaurants. Yeah. It's crazy.
Basically, we're all suckers.
Yeah.
Allie is a brand storyteller. She is a speaker, a best-selling author, and she has a new book called Cinderella Killed My Sex Life coming out in spring this year.
Yeah.
So just in a couple months.
Yeah. We're excited we really just enjoyed this interview. So we hope you do too. Okay, you guys, we are so excited to be here today with Allie Craig. And just a little bit of background, because everybody's like, how did you meet her? Well, I met her at a conference. Like I've apparently met everybody at a conference, but I actually happened to sit down next to Allie during lunch, and we just started chatting, just like, hey, how's it going? Who are you? And she found out that I do a podcast with Sharon, and she's like, well, guess what I do? And she's like, I'm a neuroemotional brander. I'm like, excuse me? What is that? Pray tell what that is. And so, and so she talked about, like, I talk about the psychology of brands and such. And I was like, oh, we actually need somebody to talk about menu planning and menu engineering and the psychology of menus. And so I had to have her on, especially since we went to breakfast together at the best place ever. It's like this little deli in Palm Springs. I think I mentioned it. They had the best sweet rolls, right, Allie?
The best cinnamon rolls ever.
Yeah.
I
Seriously.
ate it all.
Yeah. So amazing. So, so we had breakfast together and just chatted, and we're like, yes, we need somebody to talk about this that is an authority on the psychology of menus, because it's kind of interesting. And we did have a request from a reader, and it's from Joanna. Hey, Joanna, how's it going? Welcome, Allie. I will do a quick introduction, but thank you so much for coming in today and talking to us.
Thanks for having me. I love talking about psychology and what they're really up to, especially when it comes to menus.
Yes, it's so fun. Anyway, okay, so a little bit about Allie. So I kind of like to, in just my short time with her, I want to say that she's a storyteller, and that's what she does for brands. She's a storyteller of those brands. So she helps them tell their story, the emotional story that they want to tell. She also is a speaker, an author. She has 2 best-selling books, as well as one coming out in the spring. That one is called Cinderella Killed My Sex Life. I'm just saying that might be an interesting one to check into later this year. And once again, she is a neuroemotional brander, and I'll let her get into a little bit more about that. So Allie, can you first start out and tell us exactly what that means?
So neuroemotional branding takes branding in a direction that it was kind of always meant to go. So most people nowadays, when you hear the word branding, if you don't get the lame joke from the guys about branding cattle, they're like, oh, you mean your website? You mean your business card? You mean your logo? And it's like, no, those are all parts of your brand. Your brand is actually, we started creating what we call brands today because we needed to give personalities to inanimate objects like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all these products that were no longer sold by people. They were sold by masses. And so neuroemotional branding takes the science and psychology of neuroscience, human need psychology, sociographics, psychographics, and it takes that and it says, how can we put that into a brand? And it's about really triggering emotions because we think we're very logical beings. We are not.
No.
We buy on our feelings and then we justify our actions later.
Impulses.
So that's exactly what they're using in the menus. It's what every brand does. So neuroemotional branding really is about focusing on the science and psychology of triggering the right emotions for your audience at the right time.
Whoa. Okay, so did everybody get that? So I feel like this would be very helpful if you're a small business owner or if you're a large business owner. Like you need to be able to understand these concepts that Allie's talking about.
And understand how they're using you and tricking you.
Yeah, they're already doing it. All the large companies are already doing it. They've been doing it for decades. That's nothing new. The great thing is that the science has gotten so easy for most consumers to get that you don't need to have multi-million-dollar budgets to actually have it be personalized to your work. So that's like the really awesome thing for entrepreneurs.
Oh,
cool.
That's really cool. Okay, well, let's delve into menu engineering. I want to know especially like how do they make customers buy more? Namely, let me ask one question that's very specific. There are some menus that I've seen that are so long. And I was like, how is that going to help me buy more food? Like, are there things that make me want to buy more?
Well, it all really depends on what the brand is trying to do. Length of the menu has less to do with what they're really offering to you and more about how they want to have you feel about them as a brand. So if we look at Cheesecake Factory, which is notorious for the biggest menu known to man.
It's kind of obnoxious, Allie.
They have over like 250 or plus menu items.
Yeah, there's so many of them. Okay, so tell me let's talk about Cheesecake Factory, for example. They have the largest menu. So what's the deal though?
But what do they want to be known as? Cheesecake Factory targets an audience that is more of a working class kind of person. They're concerned about how much money they're spending. But this is an indulgent treat. I mean, the name says it all. Cheesecake.
Yes.
Very indulgent. That's what you start. Like you expect, this is going to be decadent. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of their name, Factory, also tells you what you're going to get. Mass production. It doesn't say fresh, homemade, from scratch in the kitchen. So if they had a skinny menu, that would already go completely against their name. They're wanting to sell you indulgence on a large scale, hence the bigger menu.
Oh.
Now, the size of the menu, though, is actually just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded in half, basically. So it's not actually a physically large menu. So it's really easy to handle. You can flip through it. You think you can own this menu when you're looking through it like, oh, I can flip over here. Let me go look at the appetizers. Oh, yeah, I got that. Well, you feel like you're in control. So you feel like you can control how much you're spending. Like in the end, you're not worried about, oh my gosh, what is my bill going to be price point wise? And also that you can control what you're really purchasing. Like you're in charge here. So yeah, I can eat that whole piece of cheesecake. No problem kind of thing.
So it's I've never thought about the actual physical size of a menu, but you're right. It's approachable. It's small. It fits in hand. And you're right. I can handle a piece of cheesecake. Bring it on. I'll order that and other things.
And when you think about your brand, you're not just thinking about all elements play into it. So you're thinking about the type of paper. You're thinking about the style of font. You're thinking about the size. How does it feel? How do people interact with it? All of that creates the experience your audience is having. So you want that from a restaurant or a brand perspective. You want to make sure that you're letting them feel the way you're setting them up for, basically. So for Cheesecake Factory, it's small, it's nimble. So you think, I am in control. I can totally handle this. Now, if they took the exact same menu and did it like the higher end restaurants do it, where it's the big, really super long menus that you open up and it's just two sides, basically, those are very cumbersome to deal with, And what it does is it makes you feel like, ooh, I'm kind of out of place here because I don't exactly know how to open this up gracefully. It's kind of like, ooh, I don't want to spill the water glass, or, oh my gosh, it just hit my stomach. So you begin to think, can I pay for this bill? Should I really get the big steak entree, or should I just go with a salad because it just hit my stomach? Maybe I don't need to get the cheesecake. So their psychology that they use in the nimbleness and how slick the paper is, because it's pretty much all laminated, also for cleanability, makes you feel like you are in control and you have this.
That is interesting. So can we talk a little bit then about like the graphic design and maybe even typography of the letters and this, like the font that they use?
So for Cheesecake Factory, so first off, a typography is the art of the font. So basically there's all these different parts to a letter that most people don't even understand because they're like, isn't that just a letter? And no, it's not. So most restaurants, especially ones that want to come across, or even brands in general, that want to come across as fresh and young and hip, do really clean fonts. When you see more classic fonts like Georgia, you see what's basically called the feet. And so when we're like, what's a foot on a font, on a letter? I have no idea what that means. So think of a capital T, and that horizontal bar that makes the top of the T, the foot of that would be the little corners at the end. Mm-hmm. So if something hangs down versus that horizontal line being clean, that's the foot basically. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that, it's basically visual clutter. So your mind's like, ooh, like I don't know what to do with this visual clutter, because we really like clean space for our eyes to rest. When you have that visual clutter, two things happen. Number one, you think this brand's a little bit older, and you also think this brand's more expensive because it has this higher elegant feel. So when you look at Cheesecake Factory, you're always going to see super clean, easy to read, no foo-foo kind of writing anywhere. Mm-hmm. You're going to see really, really bright colors, because colors can be great for making your audience do what you want. So orange makes them really excited about the food. Red makes them hungry. Green makes them think, oh, this is going to be really fresh and healthy and delicious. You're rarely going to see colors that don't relate to food. You're not going to see lavender as a main color in a menu, because it takes the brain somewhere else. And they're wanting you to focus on the food and you being excited and you being hungry. And so you're going to see colors that kind of stick into that food palette outside of brown, because brown brings the brain somewhere else as well.
Okay.
But you won't see colors on high-end menus most of the time, because those menus tend not to have photographs. Mm-hmm. And also when you're just looking at like the title being a different color, colors print differently depending upon the printer, the ink used. They also appear differently between eyes. So males view colors differently than females view colors. And also, as we get older, if your age demographic is kind of above 40, normally our colors start to appear more yellow, because our lenses of our eyes begin to yellow at the age of 40. So you don't even see the color the same way as you would have when you were 20. So higher end restaurants that are trying to attract the 40 and older crowd will stay away from color, whereas younger audiences, restaurants that want that younger audience, will have more of those colors to excite and stimulate them to purchase more or eat more or consume more.
Interesting. So can you talk a little bit about menu sizes? So like if you go to a high-end restaurant and they've got the taller menus, what kind of feelings is that supposed to invoke? I would think that they would still want you to spend money, but you seem kind of self-conscious as you're holding the menu.
But that's all intentional, because what does a higher end restaurant want? They want you to know this is a higher end restaurant. Do not question the price point. If it doesn't tell you the price point, don't you dare ask. That's what they want. They kind of want that intimidation factor, because this is elite. This is special. This isn't for everyone. We don't really want you to feel like you're at home. A higher end restaurant wants you to feel like this is an experience, not an everyday experience for most people. And so the styles of menus that they do go that way. So they do tend to do the larger menus, at least the 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper size, if not bigger. You're also going to see that they don't have too many options. Just like with higher end retail stores, what does Neiman Marcus have? Just a couple of items on the rack, because they've already pre-selected it for you. That's how special you are. Same thing with the menus on higher end restaurants. There's not lots of options to choose from. You don't have pages. They have maybe one side, maybe two sides max on their menu of this is what we're offering, basically. But they use adjectives to their advantage on the menu. You're going to see the way that they describe food completely different than if you're at In-N-Out or a Cheesecake Factory in the way they describe their food. It's a completely different experience they're setting you up for.
It seems like when I go to a lower end chain restaurant, it tells you exactly what you're getting in your, like on the menu. If you order an item, you know that it comes with lettuce, pickles, chips, whatever. But if you're at a higher end place, it's a lot more flowery language. Maybe it doesn't even talk much about the food.
Because they're selling the experience.
Okay.
Lower end restaurants, lower end chains, they're giving you the practical facts that they need to tell you so that you can make an informed decision on what you're purchasing. Higher end restaurants are selling the experience, because they're going to sell you the line caught fish with sun-dried tomatoes versus the lower end restaurant's going to say you have fish and tomatoes.
Yep.
It's a totally different experience. They've set you up. The story, you already are willing to pay more because you have the story that goes with it. And that's the thing most people don't understand. Stories are the way our brains work. It has always been. It will most likely always be. Before we even had written language, before we had pictures, we had stories. That's how we communicated. And it still works to this day because our brain is hardwired to remember stories. We get emotionally involved. Stories begin to trigger past memories of ours that either we've had in our real life, we saw a movie it reminds us of, and all of that begins to build on our memories and our emotions. And the higher end restaurants know that. So they're going to use their description and their flowery adjective to their advantage to make you feel like, oh my gosh, this is a really special treat. I can't wait to see what that juicy piece of fish tastes like, or, oh, the tartness of the sun-dried tomato. You're going to pay more.
Yeah, it's true. I definitely been like, yes, I will choose something based solely on that description because it sounds decadent, or it sounds like, yeah, an experience. Really quickly, I just want to ask one sort of a question that's related to that about stories. There's been times when I have purchased something and I'm like, that reminds me of this thing, like grandma's mashed potatoes or something. And so I think those not so expensive brands are also trying to tell a similar story of like reminding you of some childhood memory. I'm sure you've seen that before as well. Is that correct?
Completely. So 2 things on that one. One, the lower end restaurants, whatever they're doing now, so how there is the trend to say this is better than your grandmother's meatloaf or something like that, that's already been done in the higher end. And they realized, oh my gosh, it works so well. We're going to take it here. So the higher end is going to reinvent something else to keep going. So it's, the life of business. The leader basically has to be the originator, and then everyone kind of follows suit afterwards.
Yes.
So there's a reason why it works, and it's a truly scientific reason. It's not, it's pure science. So here's what's literally happening in your brain when you read better than your grandmother's meatloaf. So you're thinking of your granny now. Just by reading that title, just by hearing it, you're thinking of granny. If you had granny or you didn't have granny, it doesn't matter because we all have an idea of that iconic grandmother we kind of always wanted to have. The one who did make the meatloaf and the mashed potatoes from scratch when we had Sunday dinner. It doesn't matter if you had it in real life, you still have the memory in your head. So what that does by just reading those words, it pulls up that memory of grandmother, real or not, from your subconscious mind. And so for the next 10 minutes, you are going to be thinking about grandma. Every positive feeling you have about your grandmother or about the grandmother you wanted to have, which makes you more likely to purchase that item. So what it actually is doing is because it's bringing that memory up, you're kind of reliving all of those emotions literally. So all those happy endorphins, all those iconic memories, all those smells, your body is actually reliving it. That hormone rush is all happening again.
That's crazy. Well,
so
I was just going to say, that's like, you are totally right. Even though I didn't have grandparents when growing up, but I'm like, I do have this thought of a grandmother that I would have even though I didn't know my grandparents very well. So that's so interesting. Okay, go ahead. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Well, no, I was just going to say, so let's say you order it, because you're most likely going to order it at this point because you want to know what that feels like. Your body wants those emotions again on a deeper level. So if the waiter or waitress is smart, they'll say, so better than your grandmother's meatloaf for you, madam? And they'll put it down. Again, making your brain remember the name of the dish, making you, again, flush your body with all of those chemicals, emotions. Now you're one step better because now you have the smell, the look, and the taste of the food. You've engaged the senses. Anytime any brand engages the senses, the memory becomes stronger. Literally, the little bundle branches in the brain that are our memories are bigger. And the bigger the memory is, the more top of mind. We all have heard that phrase, top of mind. That is how a brand or a restaurant or a dish becomes top of mind. So what this restaurant has now done is it's taken your old memory, it's hijacked it basically, and it is now put its smell, its look of the food, its taste of the food on top of that. So you have happy hormones, and then you have the happy hormones of eating hopefully a very delicious dish. So anytime you think of a grandmother, your memory of what you wanted your grandmother to be, you're going to now begin to remember this dish, because this dish and all of that experience you just had will forever in your mind be attached to grandmother.
And of course, you'll think it's good and tasty and it was cooked correctly because you're thinking of grandmother.
You are more likely to. It makes it much more difficult for your brain to say that this wasn't a good dish because of the love and the emotions you carry for that idea of the grandmother.
Oh my goodness, my brain has been hijacked. Seriously, I'm like, what? That is crazy. That's crazy.
Okay, so we talked about font, but does placement of certain food items within a menu, like at the top of the page, the bottom of the page, a certain side of the page, does that matter?
It all matters. So in the West, we tend to naturally go right. We tend to look to the right. We tend to move to the right. So in the stores, if you ever walk into a store, the new item they want you to buy is most likely to the right, because that's the way we tend to travel. So same holds true with the menu and how we read. So if you look at the right-hand side of a menu, so like let's say it's a twofold menu that opens up, the right side, 9 times out of 10, is either the specials menu right there that they want you to purchase, or your entrees, so your higher priced items. Very rarely are you going to see salads and side dishes there unless it's at the lower bottom part of the page. Now, if we just focus on the right side of the menu, our eye tends to go from upper left to middle right to bottom left. But the middle right, for some reason, and we don't exactly understand why science-wise, that we tend to keep a couple more seconds there, just nanosecond. We tend to stay in that middle right section just a little bit more.
Really?
And it's the weirdest thing. So you're going to always find that those items are either boxed off or kind of separate a little bit with a little more white space to really keep your eye there just a little bit longer, to use that natural instinct to their advantage, basically. And again, tends to be higher priced items, entrees.
Yeah.
I feel so duped because I'm thinking of the restaurants that I go to
too.
all the time, and that is totally a thing.
Exactly. It really is.
My eyes do go from upper left, mid right, lower left.
Well, and I
look on the right side, and that's where your entrees are. My gosh.
I'm going to say that I probably 80% of the time order the thing that's in the box in the middle right. Oh my gosh.
Suckers. We are suckers.
I'm a sucker.
You're just human, like we all are. That is just human nature.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, kind of a follow-up question to what Sharon was asking. Does it matter what's on the top of the page? Because I find that like the inconsequential stuff is usually at the bottom of the page. Does that hold true usually?
It depends on what game they want to play with you, basically.
Okay, well, let's talk about the games then.
Okay, so option 1 is they're going to start the list with a high-priced item. They call this a dummy item, basically, because they don't want you to actually buy that item. But what that is setting you up for psychologically is everything below it tends to be a lower price point. So then everything below it seems to be very reasonable in comparison to the first item you read.
You're getting a
deal. They don't want you to buy it. They just want you to now not complain about the $28 shrimp dish, because in comparison to the $56 item that was right above it, $28 seems like a steal.
Oh yeah, it's a drop in the bucket.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's totally true.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We're both
now,
like
the
sitting
other
here.
way they do it is they'll flip it and they'll say, okay, we have a shrimp dish and it's whatever, and now we have those beautiful Alaskan crab legs and it's whatever price point, and then you could have scallops and it's this price point. And at the bottom, they're going to basically give you some version of a sample platter, but with a way chicer name than sample platter, where it's going to combine all those items. It's still a higher price point, but because they know you're kind of having a hard time to decide between scallops and shrimp, they're like, oh, now I get a little sampling and I'm going to pay more money, but that's okay. They're not actually creating anything new. It doesn't cost them any more money. They're actually giving you less food, honestly. But because you don't have to choose, because you don't have to, they've given you a way out of the pain point of choosing which item you really want, then you're willing to pay the price point to be higher, to not be in that psychological pain.
Oh my gosh. You're like, Allie, you're like, Winter, you have this you're telling, it feels like you're saying, Winter, you have problems when you choose menu items, because I'm like, that's me. Like, I always have a hard time. And it's true. It is kind of a pain point when you're like, I can't decide between these 2 to 3 items I usually have. That is interesting. So I'm assuming that there's some research about quote unquote pain points, these things that trigger like, oh, I don't want to do anything that would make me decide on one dish or the other. Can you talk a little bit about the research?
Basically, human beings don't like pain. We don't want to be in pain. And what, as a brander or as a company understands, the restaurant understands, is we don't want you to think of pain either. Because if you think of pain and associate that struggle with us, then that's not a positive, that's a negative experience. So when it comes to making you choose, sometimes they use it to their advantage. So here, I won't make you choose at all because I'm going to give you the sample platter out basically. Or I'm going to force you to choose, and it's going to be so amazing, I'm going to tease you with the other dishes to come back again. So there's twofold game there depending upon how they want to play that game. What really triggers pain, though, less about choosing, is more about paying. Pain always triggers, it literally does trigger the pain part of the brain. It triggers the same emotional response, the same hormonal response. So quicker, the better, basically.
So the quicker, the better, then you say that. So, but I feel like there's 2 different ways that prices are formatted. Well, I guess 3 different ways, where one is not listed. That's one way they don't list it. The other one is they do a whole dollar amount. So $10 for this burger, right? Or they could do $9.95 for this burger, right? So let's talk about that, because it seems like if I want to not trigger a pain point, I would choose $10 versus $9.95. But I know that there's some psychology to having the $9.95.
You are so right. And it all depends on who the brand's going after and how they want you to feel about the brand. So let's start with the no price listed.
Okay.
No price listed is just like the menu being kind of clumsy. They want to make sure that you know that you're in a special place. So these higher end restaurants that don't list prices basically are telling you, you don't belong here if you have to ask, kind of thing. They use the intimidation. They make it a positive experience for you because you think, oh my gosh, I am so special to have gotten a reservation here. Like, yeah. I don't know if it's going to cost me my entire, mortgage payment for the month, but it's going to be worth it. I know it's going to be. Look how confident they are in their prices.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So that's option one.
That's the experience they're trying to create. Okay.
Because it's luxury. Because what's luxury? Luxury items, those high elite items, if you're going to go buy, a Ferrari or something like that, it's like if you have to ask how much the Ferrari is, you probably shouldn't be saying you want to test drive the Ferrari. So again, it's kind of an intimidation factor. If you know your budget's a Jeep, you are not going into the Ferrari dealership to ask to test drive the Ferrari. Right. Same thing holds true with these higher end restaurants.
It's just opulent. Okay. It is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luxury is all about limitations and making not everyone feel special and inclusive. So that's what the luxury brands are trying to do.
Okay.
Now, the higher brands that aren't quite the so luxury intimidation, but not, mass marketed either. Those brands tend to take the approach of whole numbers, and they go off the science that says the bigger the footprint is visually on the menu that the number reads, the more pain it's bringing to the brain. So instead of let's say your example of your $10 burger, they could do $$10.00 still says $10. But because that's taking up much more visual footprint, it's taking up, let's see, 5 spaces, 6 spaces, 1.
Well,
6 spaces versus 2 spaces for just a 1 and a 0. Psychologically, your brain already assumes that costs more money because that's just a bigger visual footprint. So therefore, more money, and it's going to trigger more pain in your brain.
Okay.
Now, the lower end fast food joints and things like that, they don't really care about that because they already know that their consumer, that this is already a stretch for them to come. If it's to feed your kids McDonald's for the whole family, or if it's to go to Applebee's or, a chain like that, they already know that their consumer, this isn't an everyday like, oh, no big deal, we're just going out for dinner. Like, this is normally an experience for us, and it's going to take a financial stretch to make it happen. So they're playing on the side of that mentality of that person doesn't want the big guy to win. They want to know that this is a fair shake, basically. So by putting dollars and cents, the price looks more real. Because how many times have we ever gone to the grocery store and only spent $75 flat?
True.
You spend $75.50. That price seems more real to us. So even though it does create a bigger visual footprint, they're going to put the dollar and the cents because to their end consumer, it says that the big guy didn't win. The company didn't win. I got a fair deal. They didn't have such a huge profit margin. I got a better price point.
The man.
Okay.
They're
okay.
they're trying to beat the man. That's so interesting. That is so crazy.
Can you tell me about freebies? So we're talking about the food that you pay for, but then when you go to some restaurants, they'll give you the bread basket or something's included in your meal, something like that.
That doesn't make sense to me because I feel like I always end up spending more when they give me peanuts or popcorn or bread or something. I don't know what the deal. What's up with that?
So it's actually the perfect segue to what we were just chatting about. So originally, those freebies started out as palate cleansers in the higher end restaurants. And still, you'll every so often get like a complimentary little dish from the chef as a palate cleanser. Then basically they realized, wait, if we give them bread, we can make our entree portions smaller, but they still leave full. So it was a way to save money. When you see the restaurants that give you the peanuts or the unlimited rolls or, all those kind of like super massive amounts of food that are extra or free, it goes back to the psychology of who their target audience is. Those are people who it is a treat to go out to eat. It is not an everyday necessity. It is a luxury for them. It is not the easiest thing financially for them to afford. So these are also the restaurants that tend to do the dollars and cents, and they want you to go away with a doggy bag because those doggy bags say, I got a good deal. I left full and I even got something to take home. That's why Olive Garden's buy one, take one menu is like so ridiculously popular because though that audience, the people who are going there for that yummy Italian inspired food,
Yes.
Inspired. Yes.
they want to know that because they can't afford that every single day. It is a treat that, we're going to Olive Garden tonight. And so by purchasing something that's going to intentionally give them a to-go bag, they feel like they've gotten more value out of their meal. Their money was invested smartly because we didn't just get one meal, we got two, or we got dinner and a lunch. And so you're more likely to go back to that restaurant because it feels like a wise investment for your money.
That makes a lot of sense.
Does it cost more for the restaurant?
They've already factored all of that into their price point.
It can't be that much. I mean, like, come on.
Okay.
Really, some of them are giving you peanuts to snack on. And so they cost peanuts. Okay, so this is an interesting one for me because I feel like this has been a trendy thing in menus is that I see menus that have an appetizer section and then there's kind of a small plate section. I think tapas are becoming more trendy. So does it make a difference? Does it encourage people to buy more? How would you describe the psychology of having both of those on the menu?
So just like with every trend, the idea of small plates started at the higher end restaurants because think back to like the 80s. I can't think back past that because I'm from the 80s. So it may have happened in the 70s too, but I can't guarantee you that one. You only saw appetizers with higher end restaurant menus. You didn't go to your local chain restaurant and see appetizers. You saw soup, salad, here's your entree, have a dessert. You didn't offer appetizers back then, really. Now you go to these restaurants and everyone offers an appetizer menu of some sort. So it's no longer special. So these higher end restaurants, to make their patrons say, why would I spend more money on an appetizer? Because I could get the same appetizer at this other restaurant. Like, shouldn't appetizers be roughly like $8 to $14 roughly? That's kind of the general price point you assume an appetizer will be. These higher end restaurants wanted to charge more for their appetizers. So they basically made small plates.
Oh.
So it's just renaming something that already existed. Now, when it comes to the whole tapas idea, because that's, the experience, we're sharing, we're having fun, where they're coming in on it is they know for an entree, you're going to sell one entree per person at the table 9 times out of 10. Not true for a small plate. So though a small plate price point is a couple of bucks less than an entree, you're most likely going to purchase at least 1 to 2 plates more than the head count at the table. So they're either making the exact same amount of money, if not coming out a little bit ahead. Also, they're more likely to sell a dessert or some other kind of add-on afterwards because you don't feel like you indulge so much because I just ordered a small plate. Wasn't I doing the healthy option? So you're going to indulge again. Whereas when you order the entree, we're kind of beginning to become programmed to say, oh, no dessert for me because we don't want to indulge too much.
That totally makes sense. I've done that before.
We all do that. We're like, oh, we'll be gluttonous if we get dessert because I just had this huge entree and clean my plate. Well, if it's a small plate, even if you had basically 2 small plates, which is an entree if not larger, you still feel like, oh, all I did was order small plates.
Yeah, just the word small plate. It's totally that messes with me. Dang it.
Now we're beginning to see though that these lower end chain restaurants are beginning to bring on this small plate idea as lunch options, as their healthy choice options. And it's smart for them because again, just like you were saying, you hear small plate, you immediately think, oh, it's a healthier option. Doesn't matter, it's full of mac and cheese and not salad. It feels like it's a healthier option than buying the full entree because it's portion control for you. So it's smart for them, but what it's also saying is it's signaling that the higher end restaurant is going to find a new evolution to stand apart. So there's going to be another trend coming, I promise.
Okay. Do you know what that is by any chance? I'm curious now. Like, have you seen anything yet?
I haven't seen anything specific yet. There's not enough people doing one specific trend yet,
Gotcha.
But it will be coming.
Okay. I have another question from a listener, and she asked specifically, does having nicely styled foods and photos make a difference in how people place their orders? I know how I would answer, but I'll let you, the expert, comment on that.
So I'm a big believer of what Chef Gordon Ramsay says, which is nice restaurants shouldn't show pictures of their food because you have to be so specific. And when it comes to food styling and whatnot, that's an industry that it's technically true, but you would never actually consume the food the way it's currently styled. So yes, pictures matter. If it's going to be a menu with pictures on it, they completely matter. That burger better look juicy. That lettuce better look crisp. But you're never going to actually consume it the way the food stylist actually prepared it because that burger is most likely raw. That lettuce has oil all over it to make it look shiny. They went through about 100 buns to get that perfect one with all the sesame seeds on it. It will never look that way. I mean, we've all been to McDonald's, seen what the Big Mac's supposed to look like, opened up the box and was like, what? That is not the same thing. So, but menus with pictures began because those were at restaurants that were lower end where the literacy of their consumer was at question. And so instead of making their consumer not be able to kind of feel dumb and to feel out of place, they said, we're going to put pictures up, which makes a clear example. They don't have to be able to read it. They don't have to be able to understand what it says. They just order off the picture menu, basically. So it was a way to make the consumer feel more comfortable.
That is fascinating. So I am remembering a time that I was in Seattle in the International District, and I was with 2 girlfriends on vacation, and we walked into a restaurant and nobody spoke English. And we walked in because it smelled so good from the street. It was, I think, a Chinese restaurant. It had characters on the menu and we couldn't read the menu. And so they actually took us around the restaurant and we pointed at people's food.
You did? Oh, well, and actually a lot of Chinese restaurants have pictures because the literacy of some of the customers is in question.
Yep. Mine is in, yes, I don't read or speak in Chinese. Yeah.
Well,
Mandarin or what have you. Cantonese,
well, now,
nothing.
I think that's so interesting what you said, Allie, because I thought pictures were just a way to invoke. Same thing, like I want to eat that. That's what I want.
To make you want it.
But it actually makes sense more from a literacy standpoint that's where it originated from.
Well, and the thing about making you want it, it does make you want it, but just like with the Big Mac, it also gives you a letdown. So if the restaurant is kind of like a middle to higher end restaurant where you're going to complain to the waiter or waitress, like, this does not look like the picture.
Yeah.
It makes the brand have a negative appeal. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care that it doesn't look like. They're like, technically, it's the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
So, restaurants where you can easily complain won't go that way because they understand that you can never make if it's a beautiful photo, it will never look like that in real life. It just won't.
Yeah. I definitely shop with my eyes though when I'm at a restaurant. So I'm like,
we all do.
Yeah, I'm like, I want that. Yes, I would like that, whatever. And if it doesn't look exactly the same, I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. But because I think my other senses get hijacked when they actually bring the plate, So
speaking of eating with your eyes, I know I eat dessert, especially with my eyes. Is there a way that restaurants get you to order dessert or get you to order more with your meal?
yeah, let's talk about that because I seem to order dessert all the time.
Well, dessert is kind of an interesting thing because it depends on where the culture is at overall. So let's talk about America in general, because we tend to be very weight obsessed and we all tend to go through phases of we're eating no sugar and we're eating no fat and we're eating no carbs. And, there's always these diet kind of trends. So they always try to make sure that the desserts follow that to try to entice you. The menus that work the best are the separate menus. So the little kind of small dessert coffee menus that they bring you afterwards. Again, the size of it, because it's so easy for you to handle. Oh, I can handle a piece of cake, no problem, because I can handle this menu. The menus where the dessert is only printed on the big main menu do not convert as well because most times we're not going to ask for the big menu back. And if they have to bring you the big menu back because we don't remember the desserts that they offered, you feel clumsy, like, oh my gosh, I already ordered an appetizer and an entree, and now I have this big menu in front of me. Like, oh, you're most likely going to say no because you feel intimidated by the size of the menu and that you've already purchased. As the Western society, we do have this great guilt about gluttony. Call it from our, religious roots or whatever you want to. But it is kind of ingrained in us in the West. And so if we think we're going to appear to be gluttonous by asking for this large menu again, we're most likely going to say no. Or if we don't remember the desserts that were offered, we're most likely going to say no. We're more likely to say yes if it's brought out to us on this very simple and discreet menu where it's also the coffee and tea. So maybe I'm just getting a tea. Isn't that healthy for me to have? Yes, it is.
Totally.
And so that's going to make you say yes by having, if it's more of a like health conscious or trendy restaurant, by having more fresh fruit listed, even if it's the chocolate cake with a raspberry topping. Just because it has a raspberry topping, you're more likely to choose it. You're also most likely going to choose it because they're not going to say chocolate cake. They're going to say gluten-free dark chocolate, whatever, 75% cacao. Doesn't that sound so much more lovely?
Yes, it does. I want some now.
It sounds like diet food.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
I can eat that.
Because we've all heard that dark chocolate's good for us,
totally.
Right? And less sugar because it's more cacao versus, all this sugary kind of chocolate and it has raspberries on it that's full of antioxidants. This is a health meal. I must consume it. And they know that's exactly what you're going to think about. They're going to use words and studies and trends that they know are rampant in society to have you say yes.
Oh my gosh. That's how I eat dessert. Like that's totally how I do it. Okay, Allie, I have a couple last questions. Well, this one I think is very interesting. So Sharon talked about seeing things and shopping with or buying with her
Pointing.
eyes. Pointing. I feel like you mentioned people, if you can hit on the if you can hit on the senses, then that's going to sell it. Now, can we talk about sounds then?
Oh, there's what?
Sounds.
They use sounds?
No. Okay. So I've heard, they have said, I've heard a study, and you can maybe elaborate on this, Allie, is that, is it Chili's? No, is it Chili's or is it Apple? It's Chili's. Yeah.
It's Chili's.
They have that sizzling fajita plate thing.
Oh,
and
sure.
It usually is never ordered. And then when somebody does and they bring it through the dining room and everybody else hears it, everybody's like, oh, I think I want that. And then they have this huge influx of orders of that fajita plate. So can we talk about sound as a trigger also?
So in that example, sound is being used to their advantage because you're making it an experience. We want experiences out of life. More and more with where our culture is going, we are experience deprived for the most part. So anything that will give us that little extra experience, that little extra excitement, we're going to say yes to. If it costs us more money, costs us more time, we don't care. It's what we want. We no longer live in an age of information or information deprived. We have the internet. We can Google anything.
Mm-hmm.
Information is everywhere. Experiences are not. And so that sizzling fajita plate triggers your sense of sound. And because it's so loud, you can kind of hear it from any part of the restaurant. And they're designed that way to make sure that there is no sound barrier on the whole restaurant for the most part. When you look at Chili's, the only sound barrier they have is for the bar. There's like one little partition. Everything else is pretty open. So that way when the waiter or waitress holds that fajita plate up high, you can hear it and you can smell it. And so it draws your attention. It increases your excitement. Because you can hear it and smell it, it begins to make you begin to salivate, which makes you crave it more. And then we're all looking. And so we're all giving our focus to it. And we want to be part of that experience as well. We want that excitement. Either you love it when they do the birthday song and dance at a restaurant, or you hate it. It's kind of the same thing. Like, if you're the person who likes that kind of experience and that kind of little bit of show, you're the one who loves the birthday song and dance. And you're like, yep, it's my birthday. It's my birthday. I just want to see the song and dance and see the sparkly cake and all that kind of stuff.
Wear the sombrero.
So that's the same thing. Now, the negative side of sound and food is chewing, because no one wants that kind of like to be around someone where you have like that crunchy, sound like they're chewing on a jawbreaker. So if you notice, most restaurants don't have super crunchy things. And if they are crunchy, they're items to be shared, like chips and salsa. It's not normally a solo item, because if they all do it at the table, it's not annoying. One person does it at the table, it can be annoying.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's the brand experience that audience is setting up. So if chips and salsa were only for one and not for two, then you'd be less likely to enjoy that brand if you weren't the one enjoying the chips and salsa, because you're just listening to this person across from you, you just chomp away.
Oh my gosh. I've never thought of that, because that's a thing. It's called misophonia when people don't like hearing that. But that totally makes sense. You're right. Like chips and salsa are pretty much the only thing that...
Yeah, it's hard to get crunchy things. I mean, you can have something that's like encrusted or whatever. They'll describe something as encrusted, but it's still not super crunchy.
Yeah, that's
also
so weird.
Most ice is crushed ice. It's not whole chunks of ice where someone could crunch on it. That's normally like a crushed style ice. So that way, again, you don't have that experience.
Oh my gosh. I've never thought of it in a negative way before. That's
great. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say probably the noise level of restaurant also probably sets there's an emotion and a feeling to that as well, whether it's a muted sound versus a kind of a loud, bustling feeling restaurant, right?
The whole experience, from the way it is laid out to the way the air flows, the lights, the music they have playing, how loud or how soft it is, that is all strategic. The carpet or the tile patterns, the way the pattern is on the floor, the way the booths feel, do they squeak? Are they really upright? Are they really comfy? The way the chairs are, do they feel narrow? Do they feel super wide and generous? Are they fabric? Are they vinyl? Are they wood? All of that plays a part in it. The one thing about the sound when it comes to eating is that every restaurant knows that it doesn't matter if they're normally a really loud restaurant when they're full. There's always moments where they're not full. And you can't play the music as loud as you would when your restaurant's completely full. So those little elements of sound begin to play a factor in, what you're doing. Like if you look at a bar, like the bar side of the restaurant, when you're sitting at the bar and you're eating chips and salsa, it doesn't matter if the person next to you isn't enjoying it, because you have 3 or 4 or 5 TVs blaring. You have the bartender talking to you. You have all these other stimulations going on, no matter what time of day it is. The restaurant side is a little bit different. They have quieter time, so they have to kind of think about how their menu is presented and how people sit. Booths, you sit across from each other most of the time. You don't normally sit right side by side to somebody. So
right,
it's all strategic.
Restaurant design also, I think, is that might have to be a discussion point at some point in time, Allie. Because I think that is very, you're right. It's totally strategic.
if you think menus are crazy on how they can manipulate you, the way a restaurant is designed and laid out is complete and utter working you to their advantage.
That is crazy. I feel duped. Do you feel duped, Sharon?
I do, but now I feel like I am going to read a menu closer and not just go from upper left, middle right, lower left.
Okay, well, so this is my last question, actually. Well, I think we have this is the penultimate question, but so knowing what we know now, Allie, what are some ways that we can be smart diners? I don't know if that makes sense. Like I do still want to have an experience. But how do I get my good bang for the buck type of thing? Where should I find the best deal?
Without submitting to trickery?
Yeah, I guess. Or is there no way to not submit to trickery?
Well, it's not about submitting to trickery or not. It's just understanding this is simply human nature, and they're using human nature to their advantage. We all do it. I mean, that's really what a relationship is. Like, we're using human nature to our advantage. Like, think about a baby. A baby, innocent, the most innocent life you can have, right?
Uh-huh.
That baby manipulates its parents like no tomorrow. I want food. I want a diaper. Wake up. Like, it cries. It complains. It fusses because it's manipulating you, the very logical adult, to give it what it wants. That's just part of kind of who we are. I know it sounds very, big brother, mastermind, like secret, they're controlling your brain kind of thing. But the truth is, it's just really who we are. What you can do to maybe not fall for some of the tricks as much is don't read the adjectives. Like, literally, it's kind of fun, actually, if you play the game with yourself of when you're at a nice restaurant that has like lots of beautiful adjectives of the line caught fish and whatnot, take all the adjectives out and just read the nouns and then see what the menu says. If it's the title, if it's the description, and it's amazing how you're like, that does not sound half as lovely anymore.
I'm going to do that. That sounds like a fun game, actually.
That sounds like a way fun game to play.
Yeah,
okay.
Right? Because they even describe it that way. When the waiters and waitresses come around and tell you the specials, they use flowery language. So interesting.
Okay, Allie, this is our last question. And it's kind of not related, but we would like to know if you could tell us something about yourself that not really very many other people know.
Well, most people don't realize that I am a mommy to 8 cats. And I have a full-time cat nanny whose job is to make sure my cats are happy and stays at my home when I am not here and I'm traveling for work.
I didn't realize
8.
It was 8, Allie.
Yes, I have 8. Tally, my 30th birthday present from my ex, walking around and living. God bless her. She lasted longer than the relationship did.
Oh my gosh.
And then about 6 months later, after getting Tally for my birthday, this feral cat came in our front yard, and so my ex trapped it. And of course, she's wild, like completely wild.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a cat like climb the walls, but she did.
Oh.
She was pregnant.
Oh.
And I could not in my heart abort her children.
Oh.
So the vet's like, she's feral. She's going to have 1, maybe 2 kittens. She had 6.
Oh,
Very
okay.
fertile mama. Her name is Esther because in my mind, she saved her nation.
Okay, that's hilarious.
And we couldn't find homes for the 6 because I'm in Arizona. It was where my house is. And that's when the economy was crashing. And so you couldn't find homes for animals that already had homes.
Yeah.
So I have 6. Or 8 total.
8.
So I have all 6 kittens. And so, I now have a full-time employee whose job is to make sure that they are happy little buggers.
Oh my goodness,
and that they're well taken care of all the time.
That's awesome.
He has a very hard job. Some days I come in and I'm like, I come back from a trip and I'm like sitting on the sofa, sleeping with cats and drinking a beer. That's a hard life to sit in the morning. It's a hard life.
Well, that was a fun little tidbit, actually. I'm glad you asked it, Sharon. Okay, well, Allie, thank you so much again. That was so interesting. I kind of heard a little bit about how they mess with us in menus, but this was even more in depth. So thank you so much. That was so awesome to get.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff. As you well know, I can chat the ear off of anybody when it comes to brand and psychology and what's really going on with us.
It is so awesome. So I just want to tell you guys a little bit. Allie is a consultant. So if your brand does need a little bit of tweaking, she knows how to do all of this emotional, like bringing out the emotion and of your brand. So if you are interested in consulting with her, that would be awesome. Her website, if you want to go to her website, is allicraig.co, and it's ALICRAIG.co. And she has a free, kind of a giveaway for our listeners. If you want to enter in your email, then you'll get an opt-in, and she will send you a little write-up for you specifically for our listeners, and we're excited about that.
Thanks so much, Allie.
Thank you so much for having me. I love you gals. Y'all are fabulous. And if I ever find any more fun food, Winter, I will make sure to let you know. We'll have to go explore it all together as a threesome.
Okay, you will totally have to, because seriously, I was like, oh man, Sherman's, that was like the best. I keep thinking about all the goodies.
A cinnamon roll the size of your head. Yes.
Yep.
That's awesome.
I'm so jealous.
It was really so good, Sharon.
And it was all psychologically induced. There was a total reason why it was the size of our face.
It seriously was. Walk in, there's the display case. You're like, I got to have all of it. Give me a piece of everything. So, Allie, thank you so much again. It was delightful. And you are so knowledgeable. Thank you so much for giving us and our audience members a little bit more knowledge on menus and menu engineering. That was so cool.
You are more than welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
For sure.
Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, food fight, food fight. The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
Winter, do you have this week's question?
I do. This one is interesting because I don't know.
Oh.
When I read it, I was like, oh, I should probably be asking this question too.
Okay.
So it says, Dear Winter and Sharon, I just installed a new garbage disposal and it wasn't cheap. Help me establish some house rules so that so that I, and then she has in parentheses, or other people don't ruin my investment. Thanks. And what did she sign it as? Oh, thanks. You spin me right round. Nice little reference there.
Okay.
Do you have a disposal?
Yes, I do.
I do too.
I am grateful for it every day.
Me too.
I have lived without one. So I grew up with a garbage disposal.
I did not.
So my first apartment that didn't have one, I was in college, and I couldn't believe that they had chinsed us out of a garbage disposal. And I've lived with a garbage disposal since then. There has been a few times where I haven't, but I've always been very sorry and have always loved having a garbage disposal. As an adult, I think I've really grown to appreciate that, especially as I cook more. So.
I did not grow up with one, and I did not have one actually until I think I lived in the current place I live in now.
Oh, really?
So I have not had one up until my late 20s.
I've been spoiled.
So I actually don't think I know what the rules are. Are there rules? Because there's
totally rules.
Okay, so this is how I do it. I put everything in there.
Oh my gosh, no.
And I love putting in lemons and oranges, like rinds and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. That freshens things up and it's really nice.
But I really do put everything in there. Eggshells.
Eggshells are fine. So I try not to put in whole pieces of things.
Okay.
I'm only going to use half of this onion. I'll put the other half down the garbage disposal. Don't do that.
Okay, so I don't.
So if you're not going to compost, if you're not going to save it, like big pieces like that should just be thrown away.
Okay.
Also, just no meat ever.
Why not?
It breaks.
Oh.
They are kind of spendy. I had to actually install my own garbage disposal at a place I lived at, 10 years ago or so with some roommates.
Mm-hmm.
The garbage disposal broke. And so the landlord had told us to purchase a new one and just take the money out of our rent. So that's what we did, but we had to install it.
Oh, yourself.
Yeah. So we installed the Badger 5000 from Home Depot.
That's what it was called.
It was called the Badger 5000.
Oh, dang. Oh,
or
dang.
maybe Badger 2000, something like that.
I
It made
like
me
that
feel
it's-
really good that they called it a Badger.
Yeah, that's
and that
what
there was like 1,000 number behind it.
right, because I feel like there's 1,000 badgers
They work
eating
hard.
my garbage.
But the reason it broke was because we had a roommate put a lot of meat down there.
Oh,
Meat is bad for it.
just because.
The grease isn't good for the motor.
Yeah, that makes sense. I
the grease
understand.
will also clog your drain.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me not to put grease down there.
So, I mean, it'll clog the drain. It'll junk up your garbage disposal. Just don't ever put meat down there.
Okay.
And basically like whole objects,
Mm-hmm.
And I try not to put too much down at a time.
Oh,
I know
yes.
some people will argue with that, but the space down there is only so big, and then everything's going into your P trap,
Yeah.
into the pipes. And so and you always need to run water
Mm-hmm.
when you run your disposal.
So that it goes in that direction.
well, and it's not burning anything up, I don't know. It's just designed to have the water running.
Okay.
So
I have a quick question then, because I'm looking, because you guys, I read the question ahead of time and I did a little research, and it says no eggshells. I put in eggshells,
I do too.
and some people say that it like sharpens the blades, and then, but this article that I'm reading says no, it really actually doesn't, and it could actually cut up the eggshells into
So
almost
small
so small and
that it
like
jams in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bad about that because I've
I
chucked
put in
in
eggshells, but I mean, there have been a couple of times where things have gotten stuck down there,
Mm-hmm.
where I've had to unstick them.
Which is very unnerving if you think about it.
Oh, it totally is.
Like you could take those badgers could take your fingers off.
Well, you turn it off.
I know.
You always turn it off.
I know, but
There's also a kill switch usually underneath
I know.
the device
But
under the sink.
That's just one of those horror things that you're like, I've turned it off. It's unplugged, but you stick your hand in it and something happens. I'm just saying.
The first time I stuck my hand down into garbage disposal willingly, it was to fish out my roommate's beta fish.
Ew.
She had cleaned the beta tank, the little beta bowl next to the sink, and she had no idea that beta fish jump water.
Was he a jumper?
Yeah, he was a jumper.
He
and
was
he jumped
suicidal?
right into the garbage disposal.
Oh my gosh. And he was okay.
Oh, she was freaking out. She was yelling. She had yelling the house down. And so I ran into the kitchen. I was like, what happened? She's like, oh, the fish jumped in the garbage disposal. And I was like, oh, well. And so I walked over to the switch to turn it on. She freaked out. She's like, it's one of God's creatures. You can't murder it. I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And she wasn't going to put her hand down there because she was too afraid. So I had to do it. That poor fish had tattered fins.
Oh.
And he was still in that bowl for 3 days. He did not move.
Oh.
He lived, just barely.
I was about to say
He lived.
He probably had PTSD.
I'm sure he did.
Just saying.
And I'm sure he had some brain damage because he was not a fast swimmer after that.
Oh.
But he lived for like another year.
Okay. This other thing that it says that you shouldn't put down there is pasta, rice, potatoes, and beans. And I think this makes sense. The reason being is that it can swell with water and form a paste-like substance that'll eventually clog your pipes.
That's why you don't put a bunch of stuff down there at a time, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put a bunch of beans at a time or a bunch of potatoes at a time. Yeah.
That could cause some problems.
But
what are you doing throwing all those beans away? I want to know. You don't need to do that.
Winter wants your throwaway beans.
Beans are good. And your potatoes? Yum.
She'll put her address in the show notes so you can mail her.
No,
your throwaway beans.
No, don't send me them.
I put ice down there to sharpen the blades. I like to have sharp blades.
Is that
I know
a thing?
that it's working. I don't know, but it seems, it still works.
Okay.
It chops stuff up pretty well.
Okay.
So I don't know. Follow your manufacturer's recommendation. Don't put any meat down there.
Okay.
You'll break it.
I won't do that anymore, but I can't guarantee I won't put other things in there.
For freshening up, I would recommend some citrus peel.
Yeah, that is nice. it just smells nice.
Good luck with your new ownership of your household appliance.
Yeah, I hope that works out well because those are expensive. And if you have to replace it, that's going to stink. So yeah, get everybody on board.
Yeah, have a group meeting. And if you're instructing children, just, lay down the law.
They shouldn't be operating heavy machinery anyway. Just kidding. Never mind.
Thanks for joining us today on our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music.
Please follow us on Instagram, you guys, at Hungry Squared. We are doing some fun stuff over there, so join us there at Hungry Squared. Share our podcast with your food nerdy friends and family. You guys, ask them to subscribe because that is fun when you are part of a podcasting loving club that we are.
Food nerd community.
Yeah, that's what we are. Hey, how's it going? Anyway, we appreciate you guys coming in every single week and join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.